All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our very first Kickpoint Playbook web stream. I'm Dana DiTomaso, founder and lead instructor here at Kickpoint Playbook. Today, I am joined by Jill Quick, analytics consultant and trainer at the Coloring In department. Jill today is going to be talking about crafting a measurement strategy and the questions you need to ask in advance to ensure you're going to get the right result at the end of the process. Please make sure to ask questions in the chat, as we will definitely have time to cover those at the end, and not just related to what we're going to cover today. If you have like sad GA4 questions, feel free to ask those as well. And if you have to drop out early, we'll be emailing everyone who registered a recording of today's session, plus a reviews for your own measurement strategy work. All right, Jill, let's get things rolling. How are you today?
I'm good. I was just thinking, I was quite tempted to jump in there and go, and if you have any royal family gossip, because we were just gossiping about what's actually going on with our royal family at the moment, put them in the comments if you want it as well.
Absolutely. We're going to have a whole PR masterclass later on as well.
Yes, absolutely. Well, today we're going to focus on a really important topic, I think. The idea of this came from a lovely conversation that we had with the lovely Dana. And thank you very much to the team and Jessie in the background for all their help in pulling this together. The whole objective and goal of today's session is to share the thought process from working with brands, big and small, across many different industries. And the objective is quite simple. We're either going to validate your measurement approach, which is always a nice feeling, let's be honest. And we're hoping to spark some new ideas and maybe give you some ideas on how to enhance your data so we don't have as many sad GA4 questions. I'm going to borrow that. That's a nice one. So I have a question for you all, and feel free to chip in. Over the last 12 to 18 months, with or without a GA4 migration, or any other tool of choice, because obviously GA is not the only one, who is really happy with the data that they collect and the reports that they produce or receive? And I'm going to let you just kind of sit on that for a sweet moment, because I've been asking that question to a lot of people. I was chatting with Dana about it, and we're asking people about this. And the truth is, the main number one response that we're getting back is that nobody is really happy. Now, like Dana, I've done heaps of training and reviews and measurement plans, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and they're all relaying the same message. No one's really happy. The things are either too soft or too hard, too hot or too cold. Nothing is just right. And I was sat there thinking, why is this happening? What is going on that's not getting the value of data out there, that people aren't quite happy with what they're getting? And a starting point for me was the briefs that I get. And if you work in an agency or you work with clients, these may be quite familiar as well. These are actual quotes I've had from my inquiry forms. One of my favorite ones: we need to turn on GA4. That came up a lot. And I think that just shows how bad the communication and positioning was of GA4. People thought it was really simple, or they were like, can you just give me what I've got in UA? Can you literally do a like for like, and then I'm going to try and make it work and see what happens there? And then there are people that maybe migrated, but they got in there and went, oh, it doesn't feel quite right. It's too hot, too cold, too soft, too hard. Nobody felt okay. And Dana, you're nodding along here, so I'm guessing this is similar to the briefs you've had from people.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
students.
Yeah, and I think even the word migration, which you have on here twice, I think migration is the real word that I think really tripped people up, because Google would talk about it as a migration from UA to GA4, but it wasn't a migration. It's a brand new tool. And I think that people just, like, Google's messaging around it was like, oh no, it'll be fine, because they didn't want to rock the boat or something. But they really should have been honest and being like, this tool is going away. We have this tool now. Yes, they have the same name, but they are completely different versions of the product. They do things in a completely different way. And I think that there was some, I don't know, fear or uncertainty on Google's part about going out there with that messaging, which resulted in people thinking that they could just move their data from one to the other, which is obviously not the case.
Doesn't always work. Yeah, 100%. Well, we are where we are now. But that got me to the next point. Why do we do what we do? What's the whole point of our job? And I started thinking about the ultimate goal, all of the work we do with collecting data and building our measurement strategies, the ultimate prize in all of this is to have some form of an output, a 2D visual report that, if you're lucky, might be interactive. I'm a sucker for those ones where you can move a dial across and things move and it's really cool. And no judgment of these reports that we spend lots of time building. But these are the reports that I have had the pleasure of looking at. And I know what you're thinking. My eyes, goodness me, what is going on here? And being truthful, I've built some of these in my time, in my career. I remember working for a large company where we took about 4 days a month to build reports like this. And it felt like we were just tangibilizing the work that we were doing. We were basically saying, look, everyone, marketing is doing stuff. Please pay my paycheck. Please sign off my purchase order. Please give me my budget. Please let me hire this consultant or this agency. And I've worked with clients that have large analytics teams as well. And they have loads of power. They've got Power BI. They've got people crunching data. But the people that are receiving those reports also don't quite feel happy with what they're receiving either. And the one on the left was actually from an agency. And I mean, I love coloring in, obviously, but that was just like, I colored the data happy and let it just be. It's doesn't really work. And my question with all of this is, does it make us work smarter? Does it help you understand the data story? Can you look at this and go, I can see an outlier or some trends or something that I can use to make my strategy better? So how do we make this better? How do we get that value out of the data that we're collecting? Now, my typical approach to data strategy, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people follow this methodology, I follow a process where I go, right, how are you collecting the data and how is it configured at the moment? And we go through our little checklists. And I think, I get a green light, and I go through the process, and you end up with the end of the report and you still get the same response, right? People saying, it's too hot, it's too cold, it's too hard, it's too soft, I'm still not happy, it's just not right at the moment. So let's take a step back. And before you dive into the process of collection and configuration, I want to think about data maturity. We've talked about data maturity for companies, but I want to suggest that there is an internal data maturity of people that have access to data and receive the data at all levels in an organization. Now, question for Dana on this one. Have you seen a disconnect between what companies are doing that might have that high data maturity, but the teams that are getting it are not quite there yet?
Yeah, I see a lot of situations where team access is really closely guarded. And so the right team who's ready to go ahead with the maturity doesn't have access to it. In fact, I was just doing a GA4 training for a team who is so eager and ready to go on their GA4 implementation, and they don't even have editor level access to their GA4.
No.
IT has all the keys to the kingdom and won't let them in. And that's what I see a lot of the time is just, the team who is ready to go ahead and push into more data maturity is not the team who's being given access. And the people who do have the level of access are like, this is fine. You're fine. Get out of here with your silly marketing questions. And it's really frustrating. I think that really hamstrings companies on what they can actually do. And they're like, well, this analytics thing doesn't work. It's like, no, you have the wrong people in the wrong seats is what the problem is.
Especially when analytics is a performance marketing tool. It's for marketeers and business owners. It's not an IT tool. They've got their own tools. So the wrong keys to the kingdom is definitely, Oh, so how do we fix it? Right. So, and thank you for validating that it's not just me. So what I want to share with you today is the process that I've been using, and me and Dana have bonded over this because she does the same process. We have the same brain. And being honest, some of my clients don't always go through all the steps, and you might find that as well. I am lucky that I work with some wonderful people that do allow me to go through this process. And I would say the jump of GA4 did give an opportunity to allow this process to happen, because as Dana said, it is so very different to previous versions that we've had in the past. So what I'm going to focus on now is mainly, number one, the scope questions that I ask and that Dana and her team ask when you're working on these projects, and then a few thoughts on number two and number three. Okay, so the starting point here is scope surveys. Now, a scope survey for me, this can be a Google Doc, it can be a form, it can be an Excel document, but it's a bunch of questions, and I send a scope survey to my client and I ask them to send it to anybody that is impacted by data. So not just the team that hired me, anybody that is impacted by data and receives a report. That sees this survey sent to sales, business development, agencies, contractors, sometimes the finance teams, because they want to know what's going on and where the data is coming from, CRO teams, usability, that kind of thing. Now, the reason why I suggest it's broader in terms of the people that get the scope surveys is because it opens up the ownership of data across a company. And that probably feeds into what Dana was saying before, that the wrong people have the keys to the castle. And actually, if more people were invested in the data collection, we also can sometimes spread the budget if you know that it's not just marketing that might benefit from this data collection and visualization. It could also be the sales team, or it might be the CRO team, or somebody else within the business. And you only get that if you widen the scope of who gets to see these particular survey questions. The other reason why it's good is because silos happen, people, all the time. And I recently worked with a company where the team that hired me, where I asked them, are you changing your tech stack in the next 12 months? And they're like, no, absolutely not. We're absolutely solid. This is what we want you to focus on, Jill. Then we ended up asking more people in the company, and they turned around and went, oh, actually, we're going to re-platform in about 6 months, but we haven't told that team yet. So I'm like, that is useful to know. I don't want to do a plan and then have to redo all that work again because somebody didn't update you because it wasn't on their project plan to tell you what you're doing right then. So the main objective here is you want to understand and validate the measurement objectives and get those data points for people within their roles. And the questions that we ask, I'll be honest, will vary, and I'm sure Dana's the same. It varies depending on the depth of the project. It will vary on the business that they're in, the scope of work that we're doing. But I'm going to share with you my personal favorites, that if somebody was to say, Jill, you can only send a couple of questions, what would they be? These are the ones that I think are the most important. So the first question I have is, what is your confidence and knowledge of GA4? Now, the reason why I start with this question is because it helps me understand how I should phrase my language and tone and my communication of my documentation to the people that are receiving it. If you have people that are scoring themselves fairly low in terms of their knowledge and confidence, and you start coming in with your custom definitions and item scope, they're just going to go, oh my God, this is so inaccessible and I'm just not going to be able to cope with it. And it also is quite nice when you work through a project to see how you can move from left to right. And a question for you on that, Dana, have you, with your, I guess more with your playbook students, are you seeing, because you said before, like people find GA4 quite hard and a bit intimidating. Are you seeing they're shifting in their confidence and hopefully knowledge, obviously?
Yeah, I would say specifically with the course we have on Playbook Analytics for Agencies, I think that once students get into learning Tag Manager in particular, I think that that really opens things up, because then people start to realize, you know, I can shape the kinds of things that are being captured as opposed to just being like a passive receptacle for whatever GA4 is giving you. And I think it's that leap between understanding, you know, I don't just have to put up with what the default events are. I can decide what events I'm going to get. And then the idea with GA4, and one of the things I do love about GA4, despite everyone hating it, one of the things I love about GA4 are parameters, which you just talked about with like custom dimensions and everything else. But I think that people don't understand that there are additional pieces of information that you can capture or that already exist in GA4 and they're just kind of hidden. And once you start to get into it and realize, oh, I can actually report on this, or I can use this piece of data to do this other useful analysis that I've always wanted to do, then that's a really great way to approach, your measurement. And once people do start to get that little bit of confidence, like, oh, I published my first custom DTM event, or I, made my own custom report in GA4, I made my first exploration, like even if it's basic, that really gives you the confidence to think, I can dig in a bit further now.
Yeah. I had, it's just reminded me actually, I did a class with Grow Class, and there was a girl in there that was like, but analytics is not just for me. It's like, it's really complicated. I'm not good at math. And I'm like, you don't have to be good at maths to do analytics. No. It's all about the process. It's about what you're wanting to track. And anybody can learn this, right? Like I've learned it, you've learned this. And I would argue that the people that are using it, if you can do SEO and email and all the other bits, 100% you can learn this as well.
Absolutely,
like I find SEO way more complicated than analytics. So be kind to yourself, people, in your learning journey, for sure.
Yeah, and actually, before we go on, like, what did you go to school for? Because let's talk about that. Because you and I did not exactly approach this from like analytics school. What did you go to school for originally?
Marketing management. And I actively avoided any qualitative and quantitative modules because I'm like, I'm going into marketing. It's all going to be very fabulous. I don't need
idea, Mad Men.
Also, there wasn't really digital marketing in the early noughties, so got away with it. And then I avoided it because I was like, well, I'm not good at math. And it's like, actually, that's not the barrier. But people do, because it's, like I said, it's the knowledge and confidence. But you did software, didn't you?
No, geography.
Did you?
I have a degree in geography and ecosystem restoration, which I use every day. Yeah, that's what I went to school for. And I actually dropped out of, I was originally in biology, and I moved from biology to geography because I didn't have to take calculus anymore if I switched majors, because I kept failing calculus. So not good at math. And it turns out I'd use calculus and geography anyway, so it ended up being a moot point. But that's what I did, and this was in the 90s. But then the very first web browser came out my first year of university. I was like, okay, this is what I'm actually interested in. And then I ended up working in this field anyway. But it was geography degree.
Fabulous. I actually wonder how many people actually do marketing degrees and end up working in marketing. I don't think there's that many. I think we all find our home one way or another.
French lit. Somebody just said on LinkedIn. Yep, lots of non-traditional entrance points.
The funniest one I ever had was somebody that did forestry, and I was like, cool. Trees to marketing. There we go. Sure. So the next question I ask people is, do you use the data? Now, I know some of you, this has been up and you're probably thinking, Jill, that's a super basic question. I know it seems super basic, but I tell you now, the amount of conversations I have had with people where people have access to so many data points and they go, oh, to be honest, Jill, I just look at the reports when I remember, or I'm bored on a Friday. And if the lines are going up, then I'm happy. And if the lines are going the other way, I slowly close my laptop and go, I'm not going to send that report this week and see if anybody notices. Now, we don't just want to suck up all the data points, right? And just collect data for the sake of it. And obviously we're getting consent from people for the data that we are collecting. But this also reminds me of another question, which was, what was the last report that you looked at where you made a change to your marketing or tactics? And then I asked, well, what was the report and how was it visualized? And I tell you what, the amount of people that are stumped on that question, they go, oh, hang on. No, we just went, stuff happened, marketing did something. And I was like, but that's not the point of the report. So you're nodding, Dana. So you must have seen your fair share of, we did stuff.
Oh yeah, I love stuff happened reports. There's a place and a time for stuff happened reports. And that's usually like the leadership, like the CEO of the company or the board of the not-for-profit organization just needs to know that stuff happened. Like that is fine for them, and very few metrics. It's funny, back at the beginning when you were showing like all those crazy reports, and I was thinking, this is what I always say to people, we're not being paid by the pound when it comes to reporting, like, please relax. And part of it is this, stuff happened. And you're like, well, I don't know if enough stuff happens. I'm just going to keep adding pages until it becomes this Franken report. And that'll prove my value. Like, that's not actually what's happening here. And I think that really like making a report actionable, I think is one of the most difficult things that you can do in your career. And it's something that is almost like the holy grail of marketing, reporting, and analytics. Is like, how do I actually take this report and make it actionable? I'm not just reporting on sessions by channel, which everybody loves, but what does this data actually mean? And that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And it isn't just, there's not just one trick that it can apply to every industry. It really has to apply to your own specific situation. I think that that's where people really get hung up. It's hard. So if you're struggling with it, like, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Don't feel it's not just you. It's hard.
Definitely. Which kind of leads kind of nicely to my next favorite question. What data do you not trust, and why do you not trust it? Now, the reason why I love this question is, truthfully, it saves me so much time, because people don't know the ins and outs and all the kinks and quirks of GA4 yet. So you can't brief on what you don't know, but people do know when they're looking at data that something doesn't sit quite well with them. The too hot, too cold, too hard, too soft kind of thing. So when people say to me, things feel a bit off, I can go through my checklist and go, I bet it's one of these things. And common ones that have come up recently, I get lots of people that will say, Jill, the volume doesn't make sense. It was larger in UA. Our conversion rates are different. They're either up or down. And one quick check, which again, the fundamentals, it seems really basic. I can't tell you how many reviews and audits I've done where the host name, and this is me just going into a report, adding a filter, looking at host names and go, what's in here? And I had a brand last week that said, Jill, we've got 8. There's 8 domains. We've got landing pages, yada, yada, yada. And I looked at it and there were 54 subdomains and domains, and it was diluting their conversion rates. And because everybody saw the URI, so it was like / for the website, they didn't notice. They just took the data and ran with it. And then I've had it go the other way, where there should have been more domains and there were less in there. So it's another one to go, is this a GA4 data model, or was the implementation not quite right? And that's why you're kind of missing stuff. There's a link here because this is a much wider conversation. And if you ask Dana nicely, she might do a webinar on this at some point. Cross your fingers for that one. Check your consent management platform. Now, I know I'm based in London and in the UK and still technically part of Europe in my soul. You've still got rules coming in Canada and America, so you don't get off the hook either. Consent management platforms and your cookie banners can cause a stinker of problems. And there's an example that I saw quite a lot, actually, maybe about 80% of the implementations that I looked at, a skyrocketing amount of direct traffic because of when GA4 fired after that cookie banner. There's more information to read on later. And again, ask Dana nicely and she might gift you with a webinar all on this topic. But that's also another challenge that people have had, that it was actually nothing to do with analytics. It was the consent management platform that was causing all those little niggles. Now, this isn't a definitive list, but this is a common example of why I love that question, because it was normally something that could be easier to fix. Referral exclusions not updated. So they had a new payment gateway and they didn't update it. And that's why their attribution had gone a slightly different way. They were duplicating purchase events. They had reporting identity thresholds, which are slightly better now, but sometimes blended and device-based can still cause a couple of hiccups. There's a lot of good you can get out of that question. Then I dive into what are the most and least important metrics that you track. Now, this question is more focused around, what does this person that's answering their survey, what do they care about? Because I'm trying to understand, what data do these people have in hand? And are they getting the right data? Is it being visualized in a way that's actually going to help them understand the data? Because it's not just about, I can have a pie chart, let's have a pie chart. It could be visualize in a better way, but we need those dimensions and metrics. And when you ask people what is important to you, it's a selfish question, but selfish in a good way, because you all have, everybody that's listening to this webinar now, you all have some form of performance review, right? You have to show that the work you're doing, that you're getting paid for, is doing something. And finding out what that friction is for somebody. Are you getting the data that you need so that you can show that the work you're doing is bringing value. And if you focus on what matters to people and then their departments and then obviously the wider business objectives, it's a lot easier to feed in your measurement approach and what events you could be tracking, because you are focusing on what matters to that person. And to really hammer this home, I remember having a conversation with a CFO of a company that I worked with, and I was sending him those reports, my eyes, like I was really proud of them as well. I was like, hey, here's my report. Ta-da. And this guy just looked at me and went, Jill, I just need you to put the key messages on a post-it note. I will not read anything else. And I went back to my desk and considered opening a bottle of wine at lunchtime. I'm like, I've given him the dashboard, right? How am I supposed to boil this down to a post-it note for the CFO? And that made me start to think about what I now call post-it note reporting, because it's about boiling down what people need for their roles, what they need for their own personal performance metrics, going back to what do you care about and what are the most and least important. And I think, Dana, you must have seen this as well. Like, you've got questions with the kick point templates. I think you've got one similar to you that's about, it's not about, what's the question? I think it's top of my head.
Yeah. The question that we ask are there specific performance metrics that are going to your job performance? So, are you going to be graded based on one? I remember someone said to us once, my year-end bonus depends on bounce rate. It's like, well, we can fix that tomorrow then. Problem, because bounce rate's a horrible metric, and this is universal analytics. It's more meaningful now in GA4, but still use engagement rate. We can do a separate webinar about that, but it's, you could make bounce rate 0% tomorrow by faking out universal analytics. No problem. Enjoy your massive bonus, right? But I think that everyone does have this like personal to-do list of these are the things that I care about. And I love the term post-it note reporting, because part of it too is, again, like being paid by the pound and reporting. And it almost comes from this place of insecurity. It's like, I'm just going to load you up with all this data. But if these are the 4 things that you know that you're going to get asked about in every one of your performance reviews or your marketing meetings or whatever they are, like that's what we ask people is, what are the questions that people ask you? And then who asks you them? Because then we need to know, do they need a report that's just these 4 metrics? And something else that we ask as well is like, where are these reports going to be viewed? So if you know that your boss will only look at reports on, her iPhone or her iPad, then make sure you're formatting your reports like that too. Like, don't make this giant thing that looks great on your massive Mac monitor when they're trying to like squint on it on their tiny little phone, So really taking that into consideration too makes a huge difference in terms of not just what you're going to present, but the amount of work that you have to do. Don't spend 8 days making a report if they're only going to care about 4 metrics, not look at the rest. And then also, really meeting them with their presentation needs. It really can make a difference in terms of, oh, this person gets what I want, and I just want something I can see on the go. Don't be a pain in the butt for people.
Yeah. So I guess this leads into quite nicely with the who is getting the report. Now, what we're saying here is you've obviously got different performance dashboards, right? And I can see a comment that's coming in about like, what about generic one? You absolutely still have your big, like massive, hey, this is like big performance of what we're doing. But just like you've got reporting personas, customer personas, you've got reporting personas, or at least what Dana was saying there about who's getting the report, what do they care about, what format, what's important to them. Because ultimately, when you're sending a report, 1, maybe 2 people ultimately have the power to say yay or nay on whatever it is that you're trying to get them to do. Approve the budget, keep your job, whatever that needs to be. Lots of people need to be informed, but you're targeting the 1 person that actually can say something about the data that you're presenting or validating what you're doing. Now, just for fun, because I'm a fun person, people, back in 2018, I created a Metrics That Matter workshop for General Assembly in London. And I reached out to loads of people on LinkedIn and people that I've met. And I said, if you could only take a couple of metrics to the board, what would they be and why, kind of thing. I was trying to understand that post-it note reporting. So the lovely Rand Fishkin replied to me. Thank you, Rand, if you ever watch this. And what I like about this is it's kind of a funnel, right? Like he's looking at getting customers. He's looking about growth and churn and lifetime value. And also worth noting that when I asked this back in 2017, 2018, this is exiting Mars, startup mode. These are the metrics that people that start businesses need to have. It's what you want to show when you're trying to build and grow a business. I also asked the same question to Edwina Dunn. Now, if you don't know Edwina Dunn, I met her at an IDM event, so you can bet your bottom dollar I was like, hi, and messaged her on LinkedIn and asked her. Now, she is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to data, and especially with e-commerce and loyalty schemes. So given her background and what she focuses on and the work that she does as a consultant, her little post-it notes are all focused around retail, share of wallet, channel preferences, spend. You can have all C-suites and not the same. They're all a little bit different. And I really like this one that I got from Jim Sturm. Now, what I like about this is it's very business focused, right? It's basically saying, here are a few metrics, but it shows me, am I doing things well at the best price, but I'm also keeping people happy whilst we're doing it. I've not watered something down and people are complaining about it. And I guess with that one, that's definitely if you don't know what people might have, then that's a good one to take because it's a kind of catch-all one. And obviously, shamelessly, Dana, whilst I've got you here, if you could have, I mean, guess with your not necessarily the consultant hat on, the business owner hat on, if your team, if Jessie was saying, I'm going to build you a dashboard, what would your metrics be? What would, and you can have 4 or 5. What would you do?
I actually think just there's one that immediately leaps to mind, and this is my favorite metric because I'm a nerd, and so I have a favorite metric. I mean, who doesn't have a favorite metric, right? My favorite metric is efficiency, which is something that we have in our reports, and it's something that I don't necessarily see a lot of other people doing, so you could try this out on your own. But efficiency is impressions across all channels. So all of your ads impressions, your LinkedIn impressions, your Google search impressions, your Microsoft search impressions, people use Bing now and again, all of that grouped together in a bucket. And then you're also looking at your conversions. So really you're looking at like, how many impressions does it take to have a conversion? And whatever conversion is for you, it could be, in our case, like someone buying a course, or someone signing up for a webinar. Thanks everybody. Or, whatever that is going to be, someone joining our newsletter. And then what I want to look at is our marketing getting more or less efficient over time? Because there always comes a point in marketing where you have diminishing returns. You've hit the maximum of what you can get for good Google Analytics ads, and now you're just throwing money at it. And you're getting, you're spending more to get less. And so that efficiency metric can really help you determine when diminishing returns is starting to kick in. And I think that there's, definitely people will look at impressions and clicks. They'll look at things like click-through rate or conversion rate, but conversion rate looks at clicks to conversions. Click-through rate looks at impressions to clicks. There isn't really a metric that looks at impressions to conversions. And I mean, ideally, you're taking this full circle. It isn't just someone filling out the form, but it's someone actually making the purchase. But if you can't get that far, just looking at it from that broad impressions and conversions perspective can be really illuminating. And it's not necessarily a big number. Like we've seen efficiency metrics where the efficiency is like 0.05% because they get a ton of impressions for random stuff. But then over time, I want that to get better. I don't want it to get worse. That means we're doing a better job with our marketing.
Nice. If anybody's going to be at any workshops with me on metrics that matter, thank you, Dana. I'll be adding that to my pile. Now, a tip from me, and I know Dana is a big fan of this as well. When you have an idea of what metrics matter and what people want on their post-it note reporting, do not go straight into your tool of choice and build that dashboard. I would like you to wireframe, please, wireframe your reports before you build them. Get sign off on the wireframe first. We've all been there. I've been there where I've built these dashboards and then somebody goes, oh, Jill, could you just move this over here? And I'm like, oh, good Lord, that's half a day's work you've just wiped out with your comment. And I think we don't have to make it that complicated. These are examples from my book, right? I love a bit of pen and paper where I map it out and I do a very low fidelity on paper, mapping it out, really giving me chance to think about how I can best visualize my data to tell that story to that person. How could I use fixing points? Could I use corporate color schemes? Could I do something that reduces cognitive load so that person gets to their aha moment a little bit faster? And the one on the right here, this one's just a general mock-up in Looker. But getting sign off on this before you build your big dashboard is just amazing. And it's one of those things that I wish I did this sooner in my career. I've wasted a lot of time just going straight in. And I actually think it's faster to build because it's not a blank sheet. You are looking for the dimensions and metrics, and you can whip that report up really, really quickly. So tip from me, wireframe the reports before you create them. Now, the next question is good if you know a bit more about GA4, admittedly, on this one. Now, what I really like about asking people, what questions do you have about your work that you would love to have some data for? Because people don't always know what they don't know. What I'm trying to do here is understand, again, what people care about, but also, do you have the data to hand? Could I help you with the reporting techniques that we can get from GA4? And as I said, it's admittedly a bit easier when you know what GA4 can do and you've done a lot of measurement plans. But here are some ideas from actual responses I've had from this question with my clients. So a nice easy one, I had a client that said, oh, Jill, I'd love to know how long it takes for people to convert. Now, the good news is, and I know some of you know this already, but that teeny tiny toggle there, show elapsed time, flipping love that. We didn't have that in Universal Analytics. You can build a funnel and it will tell you how long it takes people to go through those steps. And because everything's an event, it's not just for e-commerce. I've been building these for SaaS clients and B2B clients. I did one recently where they had a quiz where you could work out what product plan was best for you. So we had an event for the start of the quiz, the results, did somebody purchase, did somebody sign up for webinars? So I really like that we can visualize data and answer that question. But if you don't know that you could do that, then people don't necessarily love GA4 for that beautiful little toggle that we have on here. Now, another one that I really like is path analysis, because I normally get questions from people that say, I'd love to know a bit more about the customer journey. I'd love to know about where people get stuck. We want to do user experience. We want to do some CRO. And the gem here is to click on the start over button and pick an endpoint. And that endpoint can be a page, a campaign page, a landing page. It can be an event, and that event is obviously could be a conversion, a micro or a macro conversion. And then you can look at all the events that led up to that, or all the pages that led up to that. And that takes the guesswork out of, oh, I wonder what people are doing on the website. It's going to show you that flow of what's happening. So I love path analysis for that. And I think for people that want to know about customer journeys, that's a really cool one as well. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again, but I think the audiences are the absolute star of GA4. I love them because they can be used outside of Google Ads. And I think when you hear audiences, you go, oh, Google Ads. But actually, you can use audiences as segments. And here's an example of what I did for a client. They said to me, Jill, we've just spent a whole load of time and resources optimizing a load of content for SEO. And we know in our gut that it is helping. And it's taken a while for the results to show, right? SEO is a bit of a long playing game. But they're like, we know it's helping, but we just can't quite find the right data points in GA4. So I built a sequential audience where I said, show me users that landed on the page that contained that keyword that they optimized. And then within 30 minutes, they purchased. And to make it fair, we did the opposite, that people didn't see that content and then after 30 minutes purchased. And we were able to go back to the board and say, do you know what? The people that saw that glorious content that we've optimized because of the images, the video, they did a really good job on the layout. They spent more money and added an extra product to their basket. They got their budget approved for the next quarter, for the next round of work. It's those kind of things that I get really excited about in terms of those audiences. And you can use them, as I said, as a segment. So this is an example where a client said, I would love the holy grail of analytics. Can we see our best customers? I'm like, okay, well, what's a good customer for you? And for them, they said, well, average order value is about 120, 150 pounds. Realistically, 300 is probably top tier of what we're looking at. Like, cool, let's build an audience then for people that purchase more than the average order value. Now, in the standard reports, I added a filter, and you select audience, and then you can find all the audiences that you're looking at. And when you select that little button, boom, here's how they found you. And then you can take it to the page view report and the events. So it was a way for the team to very quickly identify, where do my best customers come from? What are they doing? And how can I reverse engineer that information and make that magic happen again? So audiences, chef kiss from me. I think they're rather cool. Another question that I've had, another running with a CFO. I have a bit of beef with CFOs, don't I? I like spending money. I had a client that, and I've had this as well, where they said the CFO always picks on us whenever we present to the team. They always go, the ROI people is wrong because it includes revenue and tax. And we were like, yeah, it's how GA4 works. It can't really do anything about it, except you can, because you can have a custom metric. So we created a custom metric, which basically did the math of what was on the page. And then we can customize the reports so that we now had a report that said, well, here's the revenue excluding shipping and tax. And for that CFO, that was the top of his post-it note. He was happy because we were talking his language. For the rest of us, we went back to what we were doing before. But if you don't know you could do this, then you don't know that you can explore it. So these questions are great, because if you ask people what they want, we get the briefs from the beginning. Turn it on, give me some events. You don't know what's going to really matter to them. And another thing that I love, scatter plots. I did a session last week, actually, and the client put in the chat, get somebody who looks at you the way that Jill looks at scatter plots, because I genuinely think they are wonderful. Some people don't like them, but I think they're all shades of fabulous because they reduce cognitive load. Now, a team said to me, we know we should be looking at GA, Jill, and finding these insights and these trends, but I'm just looking at rows and rows of data. I can't see it. So I said, okay, here's something we can do. Let's look at your site search data, but instead of looking at it in rows and rows of data, let's scatter plot it, because very quickly we can see what your users are looking for, what's interesting to them. Now, I know not many people can see the detail, but on the left, this was an e-commerce brand, and rising stars, velvet and sequins. Hello, Christmas parties. We know what you're all doing. January, though, jumpsuits literally jumping off the page, right? Turned around to the client and said, you've got loads of jumpsuits in stock. Yes, we do, Jill. Is it on your homepage? No. Is it on your newsletter? No. Are you maybe bidding on this on your keywords? No. Have you done a TikTok about it? Some social media posts? It's there. And you can go back up to 14 months on the free version. There's loads of ideas here with content and site search data, and visualize this way that my kid could look at this and go, that was interesting to that person. Let's pull at that thread. So it's really wonderful.
You know, it's funny. I always tell people, like, stop it with the tables. Nobody gets excited about a table. Like, literally, there's so many other visualizations out there. Like, tables should not be our default way to approach reports. So I'm glad you love scatterplot.
Might actually get some stickers done for Christmas this year to be like, I love a scatterplot on a t-shirt. I really do. So scope surveys, refining your measurement plan. Obviously, you've got to think of the bigger picture as well in terms of the business objectives. Now, commonly, and Dana, you might get this as well, actually, I get people that go, Jill, what should I have on my dashboard? We want you to tell us, what should we have on the dashboard? What should we have? And I'm like, okay, do you get that as well? Like,
oh yeah. And I'm like, well, what are your goals for your business? Like, you have some, right? Other than make money, like, you must have goals. And I think that that's really tough for people. And they're like, oh, build brand awareness. Well, okay, from what to what? What kind of brand awareness? Like, you know, we could put out a bad press release. That's brand awareness. That's not what you want, right? I think it's really hard for people to be more specific with their business objectives, because then you got to hit those specific goals, and that's scary. So people like being
I
vague.
think that when I've spoken to some teams, they're not involved in those conversations. Marketing isn't on the C-suite, so they're not privy to it yet. They're the one department that is to drive the growth and the revenue of the business, which I just find fascinating. So if you're doing that, if you're watching this and going, yeah, we get that, you know, what are your business objectives, but how do you get those business objectives in your measurement plan? Another oldie but goodie, Lean Analytics, Kroll and Jojovic, 2013. This is over 10 years old now. This is an old book, but I would still say it's still highly relevant. I've still got it behind me on my cabinet. What I love about this is I watched a webinar where Kroll actually said, if you can't draw your business on a piece of paper, you do not know it well enough and you need to go away and find out how it works. In that book are 6 or 7 business models. There's SaaS, there's community, there's double-sided marketplaces. And it's basically like, this is an atypical kind of measurement objective plan, right? What does this have to do with events? You can see from my little highlighter, this is my book that I took a photo of. I would look at this and go, which part of this business model is on the website that I could have some control of in terms of what I am collecting and what I'm looking at? And I basically map those to micro and macro points. And this is what you end up looking at as a kind of baseline. The left is e-commerce, the right is SaaS. And I've just taken it from the Kroll book where I've gone through and said, well, what are the key points that I'm trying to understand to say that people are slowly moving to do the thing that I want them to do? Now, this process I call event mapping, where you work out what people want, you work out their wish lists, you work out the business objectives, and then I start to go through the website, and I'll start with the homepage. And I basically go, what's happening on this homepage that is linked to those points that we've looked at earlier? Do I need to track telephone numbers, email addresses, videos that are being played, stuff that's being downloaded on the homepage? And because people have fairly large websites, I then go to the money pages, which is basically, we want them to do things on this page or I'm out of a job. So it's either buy something or fill out a form is basically what things boil down to. And once I've gone through that process, which to be fair, can take me anywhere between 8 and 20 hours, depending on the size of the website, I map it all. And here's one, it's blurry because I can't show you my client's work, but top to bottom, the customer journey, what's the objective of the event? And I color code it to go, is it an auto enhanced recommended or custom event? And then next to this, I'll go, you have these, you need to give me budget to do the others. And if you don't give me budget, then I can't build you an event in GTM if you don't have a data layer, or we need to hire somebody or get the dev team to work on it. So it boils it down that marketing isn't just going, we'd like some things. You're going, no, I need this because without it, I can't report on what's important for this particular business. And a gentle reminder for consent for everybody, and a hat tip to Siobhan, who kindly reminded me about this. Double check that if you're going to suggest a new event to track, that you need to get permission for it. It might have something to do with consent mode. You might need to update your privacy policy. We shouldn't just be tracking things for the sake of it. And we absolutely need to get consent for those data points as well. So there's a lot that we've gone in there. And the kind of high points for me is try and blend the qualitative with the quantitative when we're looking at our measurement plans, and get a broader scope of people as possible to get the best out of your measurement strategies and to enhance what you're doing. Because a point on this as well, what's the phrase I'm trying to look for? Like, a measurement plan is for life, not just for Christmas kind of thing. You should be reviewing your strategy at least once a year, because your website changes, because you change your tactics and your strategies, and team members move. You don't do what some people have done, and I've done this in the past as well. Oh, we worked with that agency 5 years ago. Our analytics is fine. And then you look at it and go, actually, we need to check on it. So sense check it, revisit your business and see if you're tracking everything that you maybe should be tracking. And then think about how those reports would look like and close off those kind of blind spots. I'm interested to know, actually, on the, because we have got a resource, haven't we, Dana, that we're going to send out to people.
Yep,
Does anybody
absolutely.
who's been doing scope surveys, or is there anybody that's now convinced that they might want to start sending out some scope surveys and finding out a bit more about what people want and what they need to make things a bit happier?
Yeah, we did have a comment earlier from Brittany Phillips who said, nope, but I'm going to start. And I think that is probably the situation that a lot of people here are in, is just, this has probably opened up a brand new world of, well, work for people to do. But
And it is work. Like let's be honest. When I do this as part of my measurement strategies, and I do it for training as well, so different questions, but I do it for training to understand what the learning objective should be for that workshop and who's in the room and what do I need to achieve to hit those learning objectives. I will say the process of going through people's responses, boiling down the key themes, it's at least a day, right? And in some, it's been nearly 2 for me. But I would say that my measurement strategy is faster. I don't get lost down rabbit holes. I can find fixes faster. And ultimately, the people that have brought me in to do this work have actually said, wow, you've given me something that is useful. You've given me something that I can take away. And dare I say it, some people actually love analytics a bit more because they didn't know you could do all these things. Because, I mean, I'll admit it, and Dana, I'm sure you're the same. When I first logged into GA4, I was like, nope, where is everything? This is rubbish. And then when you get into it, you go, oh, yeah, you just got to do all these things that are not quite obvious and are quite nonsensical. But when you get into it, you're like, God, I would have loved this when I was in a job and somebody gave me these reports. It would be awesome. But I just think that time to get the scope is just, invaluable. It's worth it.
So we have time now for some questions if people want to drop in. Thank you so much for the compliments people have left in chat. I do want to take a moment to talk about the majors that people have in school. Let's see, we have a French Lit, one person had, someone else, Brittany has a history major, Pascal went to school for tourism, Narissa, finance, started at M&As. I don't know, I feel like that's kind of mathy. Oh, Amanda did fine art. Let's see. And Diane, biotechnology, and then an MBA. That's probably like the most practical, frankly, the ones that we've seen here, and then I saw this great one here was marketers and being bad at math. Thanks, Mackenzie. It's true story. Yeah. Like, I'll go into marketing. I don't like math. You're like, oh crap, that didn't work out the way I wanted it to, did it? Yeah. So I think certainly as well, when you asked the question about scope, people said, that they do, when you provide these kinds of documentation, they use them, but colleagues don't use documentation and prefer to be asked directly or be told about dimension scope. I get that a lot too. And I think it's something where I wonder, is the documentation actually helpful? Is it accessible? Does it make sense to them? Is there another presentation format for it? How do people like to learn? Like, personally, ironically, I don't watch videos, even though I'm on a webinar video right now. I'm not a video person. I prefer to read. But I know that other people who are not me love videos. And so I do a lot of videos, even though I don't watch it. Well, if I do watch a video, I watch it like 2 times back because I just want to get there faster, But I think that other people love watching videos, and maybe that's what you need to present as instead. Like, maybe the problem is in how you're giving it to people, or maybe people just can't be bothered, which is also totally a problem. That's a beyond your pay grade, like, issue with the company as a whole, and I think that that's something to approach is just, can you make this more helpful for people? Yeah. Let's see other questions from and feel free to drop in, as I mentioned at the beginning, like sad GA4 questions as well, if you have it to work. Let's see. And then someone else as well, like the generic, how is the website doing? So I want to come back to this because I shared it briefly when we were talking in that section there. But yeah, like, when someone says to you, how is the website doing? Like, what kinds of things would you put in a report then? How would you answer that particular question on how is the website doing?
How would I do it?
Yeah, how would you do it?
So depending on the format, so let's assume that this will be a looker for it, and also stealing your template style. I really like how your looker reports have the navigation at the top, so it feels a bit like a website. I like those kind of visual cues. I will think about fixing points, so you can have lots of copy and headers where you've got the data, but bolding that if anybody just skimmed the page, that they would get the message without reading the full page. And I would do that full journey from the Kroll book. So if it was an e-commerce website, you'd have your big picture at the top to be like, we made money, and here's the difference between this month and last month, and this year and last year, to give some context for your cycles. Very important. And I would have very clear headings to be like, this is the work that we did. Because if I'm presenting the report, I'm presenting it for something. Keep me in a job, give me a PO for a client to do the work or whatever. This is what I did. This is what I found was useful. And then if you want more granular details, then you go to the other tabbed pages. So it's almost like the first page is the executive summary with those fixing points. And if I was going to send anything to somebody that can't be asked to read it, because let's be honest, we've and I've been there, like, as people have sent me stuff and I'm like, I'm not going to read all of that, that I could just take those bullet points from the fixing points to go, here's your presentation, by the way, here are the too long didn't read, more detail on this. Because some people do want the nitty gritty of, well, exactly what were the impressions and click-through rates for the other one. That's on page 4 if you want that information. But if you start with the granular first, I think you lose people. So I think you almost have to walk them through it and start with, what does the business care about? We're all out of a job if this doesn't happen. I'm out of a job if this doesn't happen. So what my department's doing, and then the granular, weedy information for where they need it.
Yeah, that's great. Love that. Next question from Emma. What reporting question do you often see executive C-suite not asking, but should be? Great question. Love this.
Oh, my brain is actually fizzing. Not asking, but should be. I would probably say I've definitely found that some senior executives are still selecting their favorite metrics from 20 years ago, like bounce rate. And I actually do think I remember a company that said that their department was budgeted on bounce rate as well. And you're like, oh my God. So one thing that I do is I pair metrics. So if there's metrics that somebody is insisting upon, is there something that can kind of also move them towards a better metric? So if somebody's all about bounce rate, well, what does that mean on time on page? Or if somebody was saying, oh, but I just care about how many people came from organic, I could pair that with another metric with, I don't know, maybe net promoter score, because your usability is better, and it's better because, you know, your pages are better and your fonts are better. So it had a knock-on effect somewhere else. So pairing metrics can be quite good to feed it in. But yeah, they're not asking. I mean, I guess it depends on the business model, but
yeah,
you'll probably have an idea of what you think they should be asking. And paired metrics for me normally do that.
One that I do as well that seems new for a lot of people is, and this is in Looker Studio, is I take a donut chart of conversions, so proportioned by channel, and then I put a pie, I have a pie in the middle, that's the pie, and then I put a donut around it that is sessions by channel. And then what we're looking for is if the slices of the sessions match up with the slices of the conversions. And then it's a really quick way to see, like, you know, your organic gives you lots of traffic, but very few conversions proportionally. Also do this for devices, device categories, which is really nice to say, like, hey, your mobile website does actually suck hard and we need to put some money towards it. I think that that is a really nice visual way to do that as well. It's not something that anyone's ever asked me for, but it is something that we include in our reports, and it's in the default Looker Studio dashboard that we provide in analytics for agencies. So I think it is something where it's a really easy visual way for someone to understand immediately what is not performing well. And I think that's, especially for C-suite, like a lot of times they just want to look at one thing and be like, okay, I see the problem here. I don't need to think about it. It's quite obvious and in front of my face. And therefore I can approve this budget to, you know, fix the mobile experience on the website, or, you know, whatever it might be. I think that that's a really effective way to approach that kind of measurement with people. And this is obviously in Looker Studio, and it's two charts laid over top of each other, which is a little bit hacky, but whatever. The only people who know that are like you and God. So it's fine. It's do what you need to do. Yeah. Okay. Next question from Colette. Our graphic design team are keen to get data that proves their impact. That'd be probably great for them, or shows how different social media or web creative does. Any tips on how to show this? Oh yeah, for sure. I think this goes down to UTM tagging.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to UTM that stuff.
The first touch report, and I know that this is something that I've seen you cover in the playbook community, that there's two reports, and I know some people know this, but the new user report is the first touch point of a new user, and the traffic report is the first touch point of an individual session. Depending on the business you're in, Colette, there may be that social is the beginning of the journey for that particular user, in which case you need to get the right scope of which default channel grouping you're looking at. It's also why I love micro and macro conversions, because you could heat map. Okay, so the example that Dana had with the pie, when I do like to use a chart is if you had, say, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn as the three that you're using, and let's say you had 5 conversions, 1 being they watched a video, 5 being they gave me some money, and then heat map it, because it shows the role of it. Because sometimes the channel that you're optimizing for is never going to be the one that scores the conversion, because that's not their role in the channel. Their role is to get them to sign up to the webinar or download a PDF or something. But without that channel, you would never have gotten the purchase. And I do see people that turn off a tap because they go, oh, we didn't get any conversions from Instagram, so we turned it off. And then in 3 months' time, their sales are down because they broke the funnel, because people found them from TikToks or whatever they were doing. So I think, again, it's the visual format and pulling everything together. And that's worked really well for me. I think the heat mapping.
Something as well that we track, and this is actually on the playbook. So if you want to, you can use a tool called Omnibug, which is a great extension for Chrome, and then you can see all the GA4 events. And if you go on the playbook website and just take a peek behind the curtain at our events, one of the events you'll see come up is image viewed. And so we record an event in our GA4 every time an image is shown on the screen. And that way I know exactly how far down the page people have gotten. Because one of the things as well that I think people struggle with is they're like, oh, people aren't converting. Well, could they even see the possibility of conversion? And if they couldn't see it, then of course they can't convert because you didn't give them the opportunity to do so. So even, for your graphic design team, even being able to give them an event, like how many times were these specific images viewed? And then you could also create an audience of people who saw this image versus people who didn't see this image, put that in a comparison. And then you can say people who see this image are 20% more likely to convert. What can we do to make sure to bring this particular image or this call to action or whatever you find being effective, bring it to other places on the website. But yeah, go on Omnibug, take a peek behind the scenes at our measurement. You'll see that image viewed event. It's a simple trigger in Tag Manager. It's just element visibility based on IMG, and it probably over records a little bit because literally that's all it's doing. It's not being picky at all. And also from an SEO perspective too, I record the alt tag of the image in the event, and then I can see how many images need to have alt tags because I record no alt tag if there isn't one.
Nice.
Okay, so I think that's probably it for questions. Let me just, so before we end things off, I just want to announce our next webinar, which Jesse has put in the chat and is also available on our page now. So our next webinar is going to be on Tuesday, April 23rd with Andy Crestodina of Orbit Media. And he's going to be joining me for a discussion on how to create AI-powered insights from GA4 and your other marketing data sources. I have seen this talk before. It's going to be great. Really interesting. You can sign up for that on the Kickpoint Playbook LinkedIn page right now, or join our newsletter, and you're going to get an email. Thank you so much, everyone who registered for this. You're going to get an email with the scope survey that Jill has graciously provided us with. So I really appreciate that. You're going to replay of today's session. And you're also going to get a special discount on Kickpoint Playbook courses. We have, as we mentioned, analytics for agencies and practical GA4 just went out for pre-sale today, which is everything you ever needed to know about GA4, but you didn't know you needed it. So I think it's going to be really fun.
Gently, as a nice little thank you for having me on your very first webinar. And also I've seen Dana's courses, and the amount of value that's in the templates and the resources and the office hours. I think if you wanted support, it's like having a little mini Dana on your shoulder that's just there all the time. I think you'd be a bit silly not to invest in it. I think it'd be well worth it. So it's not just the learning. I think all the resources that you've got in these courses are just absolutely phenomenal. The amount of work, it's top tier. Well done.
Thank you. And I did not pay Jill to say that, I promise. So
I genuinely mean it. I'm like, damn, that's good.
Thank you. Yeah. And thank you so much, Jill, for gracing us with your presence today and this fantastic presentation. I think that people have really taken a lot away from it. Of course, if you have more questions, feel free to drop them on the event or message us at the Kickpoint Playbook. And yeah, thank you so much to everyone for attending, asking all these great questions. And we will see you back here on April 23rd. Have a great day.